Just as a brief introduction to the programmes, Outset are well known across Cornwall for their business startup support, but we run two projects. We run Outset, Start, Run, Grow, and we run Focus from the Outset. And Focus from the Outset is a community-led local development project. We help unemployed and inactive individuals who want to explore different options for moving on back closer towards the workplace. And we may well be helping people towards employment, self-employment, training, or further education. And we focus really on the individual needs with a tailored programme of personal skills development and looking at boosting confidence and self-esteem and the fundamental foundation building blocks that you need, whether you're going back into the workplace in an employed position or starting your own business. Outset Business Starter, probably more people are familiar with, and that's available to anybody across the whole of Cornwall who is interested in starting their own business. And again, we provide very tailored, helpful individual support for those people who are at the beginning of their progress towards self-employment. And I think we've helped something like 1,000 companies to get started since the Outset programme began. And we are very much in the front line of seeing the impact of how the events of the last year have hit individuals in our county, and we're very, very keen to help people and to help people get back into a place where they feel good about life.
Lovely, thank you, George. Well,
back to you,
set up by the Local Enterprise Partnership and Cornwall Council in September, and working with others, the Redundancy Task Force is there to offer support and advice. Claire Harris is also joining us this morning. Good morning to you, Claire.
Thank you, Daphne. Yes, morning everyone. I've been working over the last few months with Cornwall Council and the LEP and DWP and Cornwall Development Company to set up a redundancy task force to support businesses that are having to make people redundant in the current situation. We set up an event back in August to support those being made redundant at Eden. And what we found was actually setting up different zones to support a range of people that had different needs. And that was about helping them find a job, supporting them with job vacancies and bringing in organisations that could help with applying for jobs, but also looking at retraining and reskilling, and also looking at kind of money advice, be it financial advice or indeed benefit support. And also we've had quite a few individuals that are interested in starting their own business. So obviously Outset have been able to support that. So we're really here to help and support any business that really doesn't know kind of where to go.
Excellent. Great, thank you very much for that, Claire. The Managing Director of Sequoia, Donna Negus, describes the work her company does as very experienced in hand-holding employers through tricky and often stressful employment situations. And she's on the panel too.
Thank you very much, Daphne. I'm the Managing Director of Sequoia. We're an outsourced HR consultancy. We're fairly unique in that we deal with not just the HR side of things, so looking after the people, but we also, we're unfortunately a bunch of lawyers who also take everything right up to employment tribunal level. So we can provide advice to HR directors on the legal aspects, significantly cheaper than going to a traditional law firm, but also with some additional expertise. And we also help out with health and safety advice. We have a health and safety expert, and we can also send somebody in-house to help out with, independent processes. We've got 160 employers on our books, whom we've been helping out, some fairly household names, who we've been helping out throughout the pandemic with all sorts of redundancy advice, as well as all the usual things of, Jenny's rung in sick and we don't know how to help her, or, how can we upskill our workforce? How can we introduce leadership programs, etc., etc. So quite a range of things, and happy to help anybody who needs that support right now.
Thank you. The Federation of Small Businesses, or FSB, is an organisation set up to help smaller businesses to achieve their ambition. Their development manager in Cornwall is Anne van der Meulen. Good morning to you, Anne.
Good morning, Daphne, and nice to see you all. And yeah, great to see people attending this this information. It's really important to communicate, and that's one of the things that the FSB does to its members. It helps with a whole range of advice and services that we offer, which includes employment law. So we can be an HR department for your very small business. We're the largest small business support organisation in the country, and we have this national portfolio of people that can help you. So our website is fsb.org.uk, which is probably the simplest and quickest way to tell you about most of the things that we do. But just to cover off a couple that are relevant to today, the employment law is particularly important, that you can phone us at any time of the day or night and get us and get some information. Obviously it's really important that you get the information as soon as you need it, and not at a time when you're busy in your business. We also offer FSB Care, which is particularly important in this time of mental health, and this redundancy is a very human, physical, and it's a real emotional time. So to support that, you wouldn't expect a business organisation to do that, but that is something that we do, not only for you but also for your employees. And finally, just another one of the services that we do is we look at finance. So we help with funding, we help with tax advice, we help with debt recovery. And it's important to know that actually getting the money in is the important part of this, because that's a foundation. And perhaps when we talk about, trying to mitigate redundancies, if you can get more money in, it's less likely you're going to be making people redundant. So it's looking at the holistic helicopter view of your business, and that's something that we can help you with too. Thank you, Daphne.
Thank you, Anne from the FSB. Well, in July, it was announced that hundreds of jobs were going at the Eden Project. This news sent shockwaves around the workforce. HR Director Dawn George had to oversee this complex operation, and she's with us today. Hello, Dawn.
Good morning, Daphne, and thank you. Yes, I'm Dawn George. I'm actually Director of HR and Inclusion at the Eden Project. So I wear two hats, and it's not just inclusion for staff. I do inclusion for our visitors as well. But yes, we had, not unusual in the current circumstances, we suffered a significant financial loss over the period of the first lockdown. And that meant we really had to completely transform the way we operated, along with COVID requirements as well. I've been here for 10 years. It's the second restructure I've overseen of scale, but obviously this one was impactful because that was 40% of our workforce that we had to say goodbye to over that period. And in terms of how we did that, we'll probably talk more in terms of processes as we go through today. But one of the things, so prior to Eden, I'd spent 25 years in senior HR and ER roles across the private sector. But one of the things that I think is a particular challenge in smaller organisations and not-for-profits is there's an ethical piece here, as well as the pure legals of what you need to do through a restructure process. And one of the things I personally have always taken a lot of involvement in is how you make the process personalised whilst legally compliant. And I think, just to share with you some facts and figures, we announced that we'd need to make 200 to 220 redundancies. We actually made 169. Some of that was us working with people on alternates for employment, different roles, different solutions as part of that consultation process that was 45 days long. And out of those 169, we had one appeal not successful, and there's been no tribunal claim. So in terms of a legal benefit of a system, I think we can say we handled it well.
Thank you very much. We look forward to calling upon your expertise throughout some of the questions this morning. Well, representing all types of local businesses and companies, the Cornwall Chamber of Commerce connects and works hard to support Cornish business interests. Also overseeing Made in Cornwall, their Chief Executive is Kim Conchie.
Morning, Daphne, and good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. Yes, tough times. What a tough year it's been. And Cornwall Chamber of Commerce, as the sort of business champion in Cornwall, has really seen so many worried people from both sides. People worried about their business and getting to the point whether they're really up for another fight. And I know a few people who've just thought, I just need to throw my keys back to the landlord or the bank, and I haven't got another fight in me anymore. And from the employee's point of view, incredibly difficult in these uncertain times, and not just what their own circumstances are, but hearing the headlines from media across the nation that 1 in 3 businesses were planning on redundancies, for example, in the autumn, makes it very, very worrying times, and no worse moment than coming up to this busy time of year in Christmas. I'm also a non-exec director of Southwest Investment Group, SWIG, and counterintuitively, in the month of August, they approved more business startup loans than they'd done in any month before. So I think it does say something about the resilience and the entrepreneurial spirit of Cornish people, that even in those tough times, there were enough people thinking to start up their own business. And if we can talk this morning about retaining one's confidence and playing to one's skill set in these tough times, then there are opportunities. And I feel that if we can get through the next 3 months, that some of the things which are emerging from this crisis will accelerate the 21st century business world into values which suit Cornwall better. So the interest in renewable energy, health tech, agri-tech, working yesterday with the British Chambers of Commerce Southwest, there's a real feel across the whole Southwest Peninsula that the 21st century is going to suit Cornwall in much, much better ways than the 20th century did, which was a period of mass production of homogenized products and didn't really play to our skills or our scale or our nearness to market. So I think there are opportunities that we can look forward to if we can just deal with it and the current problems over the next 60 days very sympathetically. And I've got quite a bit of insight to add to that, to some of the questions that have come up this morning, Daphne.
Thank you, Kim, and good to have some optimism. You're quite right, we need that, don't we? And now we move to Josh Hoole from the People Hub, which was set up to offer guidance to those facing being out of work and also being made redundant. Good morning to you, Josh.
Morning, Daphne, and good morning to everyone else. Thanks for the opportunity to talk here and let you know about the programme that we've just started. The People Hub is it's a unique and innovative 3-year programme. It's part funded by ESF, and the purpose is to help individuals move into or towards employment. So it's for people who are out of work and unengaged. But at its core, it's a triage and referral or signpost service. So there's a single point of contact for people in Cornwall, the Isles of Scilly, if they've been made redundant or are out of work, that allows us to triage them, understand their needs, and then direct them through to the right support that's available for them. The reason for that is, well, it's quite a complicated landscape. There's lots of support for lots of different people in different areas. And what we're saying is, well, you don't need to worry about that. We'll worry about that. Give us a call and we'll route you to the support that's correct for you. The innovation comes from our technology partners. So we're working on developing an AI chatbot for voice and text. That means it can talk to people in their own language and do some of that early stage or mass triage for them, and even offer a supportive voice as need be. And further down the line, it'll be able to do things like fill in forms for people who don't have those digital skills, and direct people to where they need to go. So that's quite exciting. And Smart Matching, one of our partners, who are creating a portal to link people in Cornwall with job roles such as customer service or admin to national, regional or international companies to boost their capacity. So we're helping create jobs, this kind of remote working, training people to be remote workers, and then give them access to remote working roles throughout the country, but they don't need to leave their homes. So that's very exciting too. And we're also embedding that knowledge in the community with Connect Cornwall, who are starting in Penzance next month. So yeah, very excited to be kicking off this project that will start in January. In the main, however, the signposting phone service is available to people right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. And also on the panel this morning, amongst its many roles, the DWP oversee employment vacancies across Cornwall under Job Centre Plus. From there is Neil Rowe. Good morning to you, Neil.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, loud and clear.
I've had some technical issues trying to join normally, but I've come in as everybody else as a guest. So yeah, very briefly, we're part of I'm an employer advisor, so based out of Truro. We're part of a bespoke attachment to sort of a full national rapid response service. So we have a national employer and partnership team that certainly deal with all the national redundancy situations, which of course we have been facing a fair few of those recently. But on a local level, we're here then to follow that through, either for any nationals or for local companies that may be facing redundancy. So we have a huge number of products. There's presentations, there are things that have been put out on the Zoom videos to watch, all sorts of links, and there's resource packs on Inclusion Cornwall, which is a really good site for companies to visit. But without going into too much more, I noticed from the questions there, I could probably pick up a few other bits later on. But yeah, we're here to really help companies and individuals as best we can in what's really a very difficult situation, and unfortunately been a growing one throughout this year.
Thank you very much, Neil. Well, there we go. What an eclectic collection of people that we have for you this morning to answer those questions. So much expertise, and also hopefully there'll be a lot of unraveling of some of those very sticky situations you might have found yourselves in. So let's crack on with the questions, and thank you very much for submitting them. I know that you were asked to submit questions as you booked onto the event. We're really grateful for those. And we start off with, perhaps I could ask you, Donna, first from Sequoia. Do I have to consult as part of the redundancy process, or is it okay to just inform the team of what is happening?
Very good question. Yes, the law requires that every employer must consult with their employees, but why would you not? We are responsible for our people. When you decide to take on employees or self-employed people, you are responsible for their welfare. And one of the biggest thing about consulting with employees is to help them understand at a very early stage what's happening. By consulting with employees, what you're doing is enabling them to get their head around the situation. You're enabling them to come up with their own ideas as to, how they might be able to save their jobs. I mean, some of the things that you'll need to consult on at a very early stage is, who are you looking at, what areas, share with your team. Once you have collated all of the information, the financial information, the reorganization information, whatever the reason is that you think you may well be looking to lose people, be really open and honest about it. People can spot a lie a mile off. And if they feel like you're telling a lie, they won't believe you throughout the process and they won't trust you. And one of the biggest things in consulting with people is ensuring that they trust you. So make sure that you gather all of your information first. Then when you sit down with them, start at a really early stage. I know there are plenty of lawyers out there who will tell you, no, one meeting, straight in, straight out. And that's it. And I can tell you of a number of law firms throughout the country who would say that that's best practice. I don't believe that's the case. People are adults. You can sit down with them, have a really good discussion with them. Who are you looking at? What kind of pooling are you looking at? If a number of people are doing the same job, they'll need to go in a pool. How many from that pool are you looking to lose? What options are there for those people? So if you're looking at a pool and you need 3 people, say within a typing pool or within the administration department or the marketing department, there are 3 people doing the same job. How are you going to differentiate between them? Have a chat to them about, if you're going to have to score them, so you're going to have to put together some ways of differentiating between them. And when you do that, you need to chat that through with them too. Is there any reason why you might choose some different criteria? What about if there's 3 of them and you only need to retain 2? Are they willing to job share? Are they all willing to take a little hit now in the hope that actually further down the line, we might then need that capacity again, and all we've got to do is increase their hours? So have a think about that. Give them other ideas of ways of saving their jobs. Make sure that you give the same information to everyone. So you should be having an at-risk meeting where you're discussing why you're making the redundancies. Then lead into a first consultation and a second consultation before you make any decision at the end. That gives people time to come up with their own ideas on ways to save their job. Ask for voluntary redundancies. That's a really good way, by consulting with people and saying, look, we need to lose 6 people from our workforce. Who's willing to go? You may well find that there are some people who actually have an aspiration to do something else, to go into nursing, to retire early, to take a sabbatical for a year and go traveling. You never know what's in people's minds. And by doing that, you may well save. I mean, we've saved at least on 2 occasions during this pandemic, we've had a situation where 2 companies have not needed to make any compulsory redundancies because enough people had volunteered to go. But make sure that during that process, you give them the support they need. So right from the very beginning, you know, explain to them that even if they don't lose their job, your door is always open, you're always ready and willing to answer questions, that, you know, at any time if they want to raise any issues or if they want to have a chat, they can do so. And that's what real consultation is about.
Thank you, Donna. Claire, can I ask you, I mean, is there a specific amount of time where you should start discussing with your employees and the fact that there are going to be redundancies?
I'm not exactly an expert, so I think I'd bow to Dawn and Donna in that one. I mean, obviously, we've been working closely with DWP, and obviously if you're making more than 20 people redundant, obviously the process is slightly different. There's a longer consultation period. But I think for those smaller businesses, it's about just doing the right thing. And like Donna said, you know, you may, by consulting with your team, they may have ideas that you might not, as a business owner, even thought of. So I think it is really important to consult with your team, to actually just look at those ideas. And we know that that's worked with other businesses we've worked with, where they have reduced hours. And that has kind of helped reduce redundancies, and equally voluntary redundancy is also been an option for some businesses. So I think it's about doing the right thing and looking after your people.
Donna, perhaps I could come back to you then. So is there a statutory time, amount of time then before you can start saying we are having to make redundancies?
Yeah, so the law doesn't say anything about if you've got less than 20 employees that you're looking at redundancies. It does if you've got more than 20 employees. So if you've got less than 20 employees, actually between the first and second meeting, in fact, all 3 meetings, so for, you know, initial consultation, first redundancy, second redundancy, and out 48 hours between them. So you can have it done and dusted in a week, maybe even 4 days, but that's really sharp. And that's when you get, you know, that's when me as an employment solicitor acting for employees, that's when I get an influx of employee questions, because it just doesn't allow people to get their head around it. And it's actually, you know, from our point of view, it actually feels quite immoral to be doing it that quickly. I know some people don't have that choice, that luxury, and in which case, you know, that's fine. But, you know, realistically, you should be giving people 2 weeks at the very minimum to get their head around that, and I'm hoping that Dawn will agree with me on that.
Okay.
Yeah, the other one I would add, of course, is that so we've talked about under 20 and over 20. Actually, if your numbers are larger and you go over 100 potential redundancies, that's a 45-day consultation period at a minimum. So you know, a good 6 weeks period, and absolutely that allows you to give more support over that time as well as going through a larger process.
Okay, thank you very much for outlining that. Second question, it's really hard as we're not working face to face at the moment. What advice can you give on how best to tell employees they are being made redundant? Neil from DWP, perhaps we could point this towards you first of all.
Yeah, of course. I can certainly tell you one way not to do it, and that's social media, because we have come across situations where people have picked up information that potentially, you know, they're going to be in a situation of facing redundancy, and they've picked it up, you know, through rumor or social media or other ways that you just shouldn't really. It's as simple as that. I mean, we've all had to work very differently. Us as an organisation, as example, you know, we're not being able to see people face at the moment. You can imagine with all the claims we've had to be handling with universal credit, how we've had to adapt our business significantly because of that. So I would say, in an ideal world, if you can do something that is close to being face to face, and there's so many different platforms out there at the moment, you know, in which you could do that, then I would recommend it. Obviously, numbers could have some bearing on that in terms of how you deliver that. But I think as a very bare minimum, you know, it should be something over the telephone on a personal basis if you can. It's not easy, especially when you're dealing with larger numbers, but to pick up on some of the horror stories we have, I think that's what I would share is you know, if there's any chance this is going to come out in some other ways, it's trying to get ahead of that so that you're not on the receiving end of, you know, what can be seen as really handling the whole situation very poorly.
Right, thank you.
Could I just add something to that, Daphne, which, you know, obviously we had when we were going into this arena, we had over 500 employees, and we had a virtual Zoom with that many employees, and it's not as great as being able to do things face to face, but the one thing it did enable us to do was prevent a lot of that leak of message by getting to the majority of people through a very hard hitting brief, obviously, but then that was quickly followed up with the individuals meeting with managers, etc. So yeah, that was the one that I know we wanted to prevent, which was it leaking out in any other way than us telling somebody personally.
And actually, it's incredible, isn't it? Sorry, Donna, but things do leak out, don't they? And you know, try and prevent that. Donna, sorry.
I was just going to say, and also just to, I completely agree with everything that Donna said, but also on that basis, by ensuring that you have made that announcement, it also, you know, the rumour mill starts the, you know, jumping rats from a sinking ship, because if you're not honest and upfront with people as soon as you possibly can be, people will make stuff up. And whatever they come up with is going to be way worse than what it was probably going to be to start with. And then you will lose some of your best people because they will jump thinking they're about to lose their job. So that's another good reason for.
And I think having a strategy to the communication, even in a small organisation, to have thought through what you're going to say when, and the continuity of that information and how you do it is that's the bit that you don't want the vacuum to fill. So if you can spend some time up front thinking about not just what you want to communicate, but when, and let people know when all of that will come, it helps people feel much more reassured that you're being professional about the process you're taking people through.
Kim, I introduced you and said that, you know, you look after businesses of all sorts of sizes, and they come to you for advice. Well, what do you say to them about this tricky issue?
Well, I think the one point which for everything that everybody else has said, good staff communications should not start at the point when you're talking about making people redundant. You know, if you can get people's trust if you've treated people well throughout their time with you, there's hopefully an honesty and an integrity which comes from that, which makes this very difficult process more straightforward to cope with. Face-to-face is definitely best, and I think that even if you're a larger employer with over 20 or even over 100 people, if you've got department heads or leaders of units which are going to have to impart the message, they need to be trained. Every business these days is a people business. They need to be trained absolutely in emotional intelligence to be able to lead those people, not just through these difficult times, but through normal good times as well. So it's training, staff training, leadership training of the people delivering these messages of redundancy is absolutely essential. As I say, not just for this moment, but that gives them empathy throughout all leadership. It is difficult in Cornwall because 97% of Cornwall's business owners live in Cornwall, so they are embedded in their community. If they do this process badly, like Neil says, they are going to be seen around the place. I mean, you know, one of the things of a networked place like Cornwall is that almost every business is involved with corporate social responsibility to some level or other, and they are going to meet the people that they are dealing with. So integrity and honesty is absolutely essential. I think that Cornwall largely is very good at that because we all know that we're going to be connected with our colleagues, our employees, our bosses, in all sorts of multiple ways. And integrity, honesty, and complete care is of the utmost importance. But I stress that although this morning's discussion is around redundancy, good staff communications should not just be around redundancy. It's got to start at a much earlier time than that. And then I would say that you've just got to be absolutely sympathetic, and anybody doing it by social media or being negligent about the people who they're making redundant is absolutely unacceptable. It's got to be done. You're playing with people's absolute livelihoods, and we know that sometimes people's lives are at risk if you're not treating this process very, very carefully. So from Donna's point of view, absolutely legally make sure that you're doing it properly. From Dawn's point of view, Eden Project had long-standing good relations with their very wide workforce, and that made the process a more trustworthy and open one. And those, I think, are sort of paradigms for how it should be done. And I know that when I had my own business, because you are friendly in a small business, you know everybody. You've been for a drink with them. You've been to, business meetings with them. It is incredibly difficult, and I think you'll only be able to sleep easy at night if you've done it legally properly and morally properly, and in Cornwall's point of view, networkly properly, because you're going to bump into these people. And it's not just one as the business owner. As I say, it's very important that those values are absolutely embedded in department heads or unit heads that are going to deliver these messages, seen through the prism of normal good management, good leadership practice, and make sure that your team who are in senior management and above are trained in proper emotional intelligence and interpersonal skills. It's an incredibly difficult time. I've been there. It's not fun. I've been there on both sides of the fence, and it's not enjoyable for anybody. But there are definitely ways of doing it better. And if there is the opportunity to have face-to-face, that is undoubtedly better. All the rest are not as good. But I take Dawn's point that if you've got a large number that you want to hear at the same moment, then we are all more used to the skills of Zoom and Teams meetings, and there are now consultants who are expressing to people how to run Zoom and Teams meetings in the best possible way. It's a skill which is developed in business this year. So if you can't do it face to face, make sure you're absolutely up to speed with your online meeting protocol.
Thank you, Kim. I just want to now explore a bit of an area through a question, and going to aim this at you, Joy, because some people might not feel confident about doing things on their own. They might not have the ideas. So at what stage could I approach you at Outset, or focus from the Outset and Outset Cornwall, to bring you on board and seek ideas on how best to manage my redundancy plans?
As soon as you start the redundancy consultation process, depending on the size of the company, we can't engage with people until they are actually unemployed, but we can start to talk to people as soon as they know that they're under notice of redundancy. I think one of the points that Kim made, and I know it also from both sides, however well the process is handled, we all feel a knock to our self-esteem and confidence. It's a rejection of sorts, even if you've been given a big payout, even if everything has been done to look after you, there's still a little part of you that thinks, oh, I wasn't wanted. And one of the things that we can do on the Focus programme is it's all about restoring confidence, building people's self-esteem, getting them to really think about where they are in life and where they want to go to next, and whether they want to go into, it's a great opportunity as well, redundancy. It can be a great opportunity, and it can jumpstart people into wanting to make that big push into a different career or into starting their own business. So we would say, as a business, if you know you're going to be starting a process, give us a call, and we'll arrange the best time and the best situation for your particular staff, for this particular staff scenario. If you're talking about one or two people, we can talk to them direct on a one-to-one basis as soon as the redundancy process is started, and then as soon as they are actually have actually finished their role, then they can come and join one of our programs. For Outset, for the business startup side of the program, actually they could begin that even before they their job, but for Focus they have to be actually unemployed. If you're a bigger company, we'll come and do a Zoom meeting and tell you all about the Focus programme, so that it becomes part of that process of that kind of sympathetic understanding, and the additional training and support that you can give to those people whose lives are now going to be changed quite dramatically, either for the better or for the worse, depending on their own particular perspective.
Thank you very much.
Can I jump in there, Daphne?
Yes,
I
of
was
course.
actually, I have a huge affinity with the Outset programme, because I was the 300th business that opened through Outset because I was made redundant. So Sequoia wouldn't exist if I hadn't have lost my job through redundancy. So, you know, there is always light at the end of the tunnel for people.
And I think that's this is a very positive spin to put on the whole thing of redundancy, is that it does give you that spur, as long as you've got the confidence to go with it. And I think that's really what we're talking about, is that before you go into a morass of despair, come and talk to us, because we'll do what we can to help you feel better about life and get on and grasp those opportunities, whether it's into employment or like Donna, into self-employment and starting your own business.
If I can just jump in, that's hugely important. That as I mentioned in my intro, that Southwest Investment Group approved more startup loans in August than any other time. You know, it's difficult when you've had that knock to your confidence and self-esteem. But if you can overcome that, if you can consult with Outset and other organisations, in which Cornwall has actually a very good network, it is the moment which you can readjust and actually take some real a moment in life to really readjust your sights and do that. If you can keep your confidence up at this difficult time, it's going to stand you in very good stead. Yeah. The support available in Cornwall is amazing for people, actually, and we're really, really proud to be part of that network.
We know 10%. Sorry, Daphne, just to add, we know 10% of our leavers set up their own businesses after leaving, so it absolutely can be a launch pad to something else.
Not everybody wants to set up their own business. So what about, we've talked a lot about what employers should do for themselves and the consultations and things like that. But Donna, what about for those employees who've been made redundant and perhaps are looking for other jobs elsewhere? There's a question here. Is it a legal requirement or best practice to let people go for interviews during work time? Or do you suggest giving them time to change their hours during the redundancy notice period to allow them not to lose out on other roles?
Again, another brilliant question. So leading on from what I was saying earlier about consulting with people, once you've got into the process and you've started chatting to people about the practicalities of possibly being made redundant, they're not yet under formal notice, and therefore they are not entitled to be paid for time off. Once they have been told that they are that their role has been made redundant, then yes, they are entitled under the law to paid time off to go to interviews, to seek jobs, but also to retrain. Now that unfortunately is only paid at 2/5 of their normal salary. So if they take a week off, they would only be paid for 2 days out of 5. But I have to be honest, I've been doing this job for 16 years now, and I don't think I've ever seen an employer not pay full pay during that period of time, because the reality of it is that A, it's a pain to sort out with payroll, is part of it, I think, but B, you know, employers do generally want to support their employees to go and find other work. I mean, at the moment, you know, furlough, oh, and by the way, that's, you know, reasonable time off. What's reasonable time off? We do love the reasonable man in the street, us lawyers. Well, actually, it's not defined. So, you know, and that's often where disputes arise. But to be honest, most people don't take the mickey. Most people, you know, try and make those, you know, appointments in their own time, or take, you know, just a small amount of time off of work in order to prepare and to go and do that. And actually I think part of our duty as employers, and I'm an employer too, with my team of 11, but, you know, part of our duty is to help people in that. So, you know, yes, give them time off, but also give them the support before and after. So, you know, as an external person, I've just finished a set of redundancies with quite a large charity employer. The 6 employees that we had to lose, because of course I'm the person normally evicting people from their jobs for other reasons, I actually know where the jobs are quite quickly. So out of the 6 people who we made redundant, I placed all 6 of them. We dealt with another we dealt with another firm where they had delivery drivers. They needed to get rid of 10 delivery drivers because they weren't delivering the thing they were supposed to be delivering. And actually, I've got a logistics company. We managed to replace all 10 in the logistics company, earning slightly more than what they were previously. So it is about giving people, not just because you have to, but because you want to, that paid time off, but also doing other things with them. We do interview practice with people who are being made redundant for nothing. We check CVs, we put them through the mill, we help them focus on, you know, how to write their CV properly for specific jobs, because many of these people, if they've been in a job for 20 years, they'll have never written a CV probably, and they find the whole thing terrifying. You know, not just, you know, giving people time off, but also, you know, help them make the best of that time off if you're paying for it. So, you know, perhaps make a computer available for them, so that, you know, because often maybe people don't have that at home. Printing facilities, you know, how much does it cost to provide a printer and some paper, you know, and some envelopes with some postage stamps next to it, so that they can do that in private during their lunch hour, which makes life very much easier. Sit down with them, have a little look, help them to job search, put them in contact with all of the lovely organisations that are here today that will help them find those other roles.
Can I bring Claire in? Yeah, thank you, Donna. Can I bring Claire in here? Because of course this is exactly what the Redundancy Task Force has been doing and is looking to do. Claire, what sort of advice and support do you give?
I think it varies. I mean, obviously from a business support point of view, there's lots of support out there to help businesses through FSB Chamber and other ERDF funded support, you know, like Outset. But I think what we've learnt, certainly when Cornwall Council set up the Emergency People Hub back at the start of the pandemic, back in beginning of April, we had numerous phone calls from people who were being made redundant. Obviously the whole furlough kicked in, which, you know, has helped some people. And we've now got a summary of all the support that's out there, and National Career Service have been great. And what we found at Eden was there was a lot of people that had been working for the same, and Dawn will agree, had been working there for probably 15, 20 years, hadn't had to apply for a job in a long time, hadn't heard of websites like Indeed and other job search sites. So in our team now, we pull together kind of job vacancies. My colleague Kathy, who's I think also on the call today, we pull together weekly vacancies from all the jobs that are out there. And at the Eden event, we were actually matching people there and then to vacancies. And so there is just a wealth of support. So with Josh now on the call with the new People Hub, individuals, businesses can let their individuals know that, you know that support's there, and they can get that support.
Yeah. Lovely, thank you. One of my team, this is another question, has been suffering considerable anxiety about being made redundant. I don't presently feel equipped to deal with it. What can I do to help make this transition less stressful? And perhaps you could come in here.
Yes, of course. I mean, there's been some really good advice already, actually. I mean, my number one thing would be to say to the business owner, first of all, is get that professional advice. Know what you're talking about. Be absolutely clear, so that when you're talking to that employee, that they can gain that confidence from you. You know, it's a bit like sort of holding someone's hand and, you know, you're walking through a dark lane and you feel a bit, you know, if you've got somebody with you and you know that they're not scared too, they can help you through it. So I think that's the number one thing, is that the business owner actually needs to be confident and know exactly what they're talking about. So even before you're thinking about the redundancy process or thinking, oh crikey, you know, we might be in trouble, get some help and advice. Talk to somebody like Donna, talk to the FSB if you're an FSB member, and speak and actually get the absolute lowdown on everything that you need to do. And then you'll be well equipped then to support that person. The next thing to do is, once you're confident and you know what you're doing, is to sit down and is to really communicate with that person. And obviously if they're anxious and so on, you also need to be thinking about their mental health, and there are quite a lot of different programs out there. I know Cornwall Council have some mental health help, but there are all sorts of different organisations like Mind, for example. The FSB also have our FSB Care, and it's really important to actually look at that person as a human being, and each of your people. Now, in a small business, obviously, those employees are much closer to the business in the first instance, and they're more likely to get wind of the fact that there's a problem. So never mind social media, they're actually going to feel it on the day-to-day basis actually coming into work. So you need to make sure that they're feeling confident that you actually involve them far more actually in the business, as Kim was saying, you know, that communication within that business. You need to give them the confidence that they know exactly what's going on. And then finally, you know, you're running a business yourself. Maybe that person does want to leave, and maybe they're feeling a bit anxious and they don't know what to do. Maybe they have a skill, maybe they would like to set up a business. Well, you've already set one up, so maybe you could help them or offer to guide them into what they've you know, into the fact that it's not quite so scary, and okay, we're going through a tough time at the moment, but they could do that. You have a supply chain, you know, as Donna was saying, look around you, look at the things that you can offer to help and support, but and really sort of handhold that employee. And the smaller the business, I think the more you're able to do that, and you won't have the big HR departments that you can signpost them off and say, well, go and talk to HR about your anxiety or whatever. It's really very much a human thing, and as Kim was saying, you know, they're very much become more friends than employees. So it's about thinking outside the box, but first and foremost, get yourself as a business owner into a position where you are the confident one and you can help to lead that employee. And without that, I think if you're falling apart, then your employee is not going to have any confidence in anything that you are able to offer them. So again, as a business owner, if you're an FSB member, you can contact FSB Care. You know, obviously it's a stressful time for you as a business owner as well. So actually you really need to also make sure that, you know, there is a very good saying about put on your own oxygen mask first, because you can't help anyone else unless you do that.
Thank you. Another question now. I've read lots of helpful advice about the redundancy process, but when it comes to it, I have 3 staff working in my shop and I have to lose one of them. How do I decide which one, and how do I soften the blow? I know they'll all be upset. Well, let's move to Dawn at the project, because Dawn, this is all part of the process, isn't it?
It is, and I think when you've got, you know, yes, we're a larger organisation, but you know, you could take an example of looking at, you know, a team of 20 people in this situation, which would be a very comparable situation. I think the information that's already been given about is, you know, you really need to have started the engagement process and have that line into your employees in a method and way they trust before you start discussing the redundancy process. When you start doing that, it needs to be clear, transparent, and very clear what's happening and why. The next step for that for me would be, are the people that actually decide it's time for me to go, it's time for me to do something else. We saw a number of situations when this was happening in teams, and actually some quite philanthropic people coming forward saying, actually, do you know what, I get a pension already from whether it's a previous job or what they do. It's not as important for me to earn a salary as it is for Joe Smith, who's got a young family and needs that job more than me. So I think when you start to engage with the team, even if you then got to make a selection, the first thing for me would always be to assess if there's anybody in that team that actually would be looking to change as a starting point. If not, and if you can't achieve that through a natural approach, then you get into the realms of having to develop a selection procedure and looking at how you will then look at what roles you need moving forward, what is included in those, how they look, you know, are they full-time, part-time, can they be job shares? And then you would need a formal selection method to do that fairly. And if you're talking about, it's still a small employer, so it's not, we're not necessarily going to be in the compulsory consultation piece. However, a tribunal, if it came to it, would expect there to be a logic and a transparency to how people had been selected. And I think, as Donna would agree, FIFO, which always used to be one of the rules used, which is last in, first out, get me letters right, is not really a valid selection anymore. Really, you need to be looking at what skills your organisation needs moving forward to make it stronger. So the first, you know, just to summarize, it would be open communications. Are there people who would be looking to leave? Being as honest with what's to come as possible, and if you don't get those through natural attrition, then needing to have a selection procedure that could be transparently applied to everybody before you make those decisions on the final redundant roles.
Thank you very much for that advice. We employ 20 people. I have to lose 4 of my staff, but I'm almost as worried about the impact on the ones left behind, as I am one of the ones that are going to have to go. Does the panel have any advice? Claire, what would you say?
I think we've kind of touched on this before. I mean, there's always going to be difficult conversations to be had, and it's ensuring that, you know, if you've got a management team that are having to have those difficult conversations, ensuring they've had the right training to support the individuals. But that in turn will support those individuals being made redundant, but also in turn support those ones that are staying on, because they will kind of see the right thing has been done, the right processes have been followed. And I think people that are left behind sometimes can feel guilty, can feel demotivated. So I think it's been touched on already, and I know Kim and Anne have mentioned it. It's that communication to really share what the vision is for the future and what support is still there for those that have kept their jobs, who may be feeling guilty about those that have left.
Dawn, can I just ask you, when you were going through all of the redundancies, was there a process of sitting down and talking to the managers and training before they had these conversations? Because we're talking about some skills that actually make or break situations for employees who are facing redundancy.
Yeah, absolutely. So the senior leadership team took lead on that, because we were aware we would be losing people across the organisation at all levels. So we all committed we would take that lead, and where we were working with departmental managers, we were supporting them through that with advice, guidance and training. For us, it was slightly different because we were in a collective consultation process, which meant our consultation happened with our in-house members' assembly, our employee representatives, and they were consulted and made decisions with that they then agreed and took back to their colleagues in their representative areas. But certainly training is part of what we would do. We're doing, you know, it's something we're doing now in terms of supporting. As COVID fatigue has got worse, obviously that means a line manager's job can be more difficult, particularly when you're trying to do things remotely. So we found ourselves doing an awful lot of support, more support now with line managers in terms of how they manage their own resilience as well as that of the team. So I think, you know, when you're going through that, it's back to the open communications. We've actually set up, something we set up out of this was we call them the Edenites. So everyone that was made redundant out of the process could opt into the Edenite group, and that what we've done is made a commitment to them of a lifetime membership to Eden, so they can still return because it's very much a family. But we keep them in touch. So we have a monthly newsletter. If we have vacancies, we go out to that group 48 hours before we go to anybody else. And that has already meant a couple of people have come back to start working for us. So that looking after people in essence in the community that they've then gone into, and still showing them that they are valued is really, really important. And we know that's made a huge difference to the people that have left. And the people that have stayed. So, and it's probably a term people have heard called survivor syndrome, where people feel all sorts of things. They can feel guilty that they're still here. Actually, they can be very bruised by the process that they've been through. So what's equally important when you've gone through a restructure exercise is making sure you've then got an engagement strategy that keeps that momentum and builds positively again. It's absolutely something we did. We started back in September, just at the end of our restructure, and now that we've actually called it our engagement and belonging strategy, because we want people to feel like this is the right place for them again if they had wavered through the redundancy process.
I love that.
And in addition, I think that's great. I think that's great. And we spend a lot of time at the Chamber of Commerce sort of communicating with people, that because we know we're not going to keep everybody for life. Nobody stays in a job from 18 to 65 or whatever these days. So, you know, you want those people going on and speaking well of your organization and the training they receive from you and the collegial spirit which was there, whether they're being made redundant or not. So it's very important from an employer's point of view that you have that comms on an ongoing basis, and if it ever comes to redundancy, you still want to handle it with the same empathy, so that those people still go on talking well of their previous employer and of what they learned and achieved whilst they were with you. So I think, you know, in those terms, it's possibly, and I'm probably going to get shot down for this, but where in 50 years ago, where people had one job, if they were made redundant halfway through their career, it was like a life-changing moment. These days, people move from job to job much more frequently, and I think, you know, therefore redundancy in all those years of work is not as much of a lightning strike as it would have been, you know, 50 years ago, one person had one job for life.
Thanks, Kim.
Sorry, I know we're pressed for time.
Sorry,
just one very quick thing from the horrible lawyer here. If you are, and just picking up on something that that Dawn said, if you are looking to bring people back after they've been made redundant, new roles become available, you offer them, which is amazing, by the way. If you have paid people through a settlement agreement, because often people want to give people a little bit more than they're entitled to help ease that passage, and they often offer a settlement agreement. If you, within a short period of time, then offer them their job back or a different role back, be really careful, because HMRC treats that settlement payment differently, and they will have to pay the tax and national insurance on it. So that's just one thing to bear in mind if you are offering settlement agreements.
Yeah, we didn't do any of those. It was all straight consultation.
And is there a time scale on that, Donna? Is it sort of a certain number of months? Or?
About 6 months. So within 6 months, if you've offered them a job back, which actually one of the ones we've just did, we had to get them to pay their settlement monies back in order for them to have their job back, and we just kind of fudged it in other ways. But yeah, it's within 6 months.
Thank you very much. Now, as we have seen and heard throughout the morning, there are organisations in Cornwall who offer support to people who've been made redundant. But there's this question: I don't know where to find out what's available. I'd like to be able to point my people in the right direction, but where? Well, let's bring you in, Josh, to answer that question, if I may.
Yeah, great question, because what I'm hearing is, well, the ideal is to avoid the situation, but ultimately there are times when it has to happen. And the way to do it right, what people are saying is communication, openness and integrity. So actually, this is a fantastic question that ticks all of those boxes. The simple answer is that's what the People Hub is here for. So to direct the employees who have been made redundant to all of the support that's available for them. And if I can bring in my arm graph like that, so where people are made redundant, they should be higher skilled and closer to the workplace. So it's easier for them to get another job. Where they're down at this end, and this is also a confidence line as well, if you're down at this end, it's much harder to get back up into the workforce. So I think it's great that people are asking this question, because if we can talk to them and find them the support that they need at this end when they're high confidence, close to the workforce, we can get them a job much quicker.
What a wonderful analogy there, description with your elbow. We'll remember that one. Thank you, Josh. And sadly, as ever, with all of these sorts of events, we tend to run out of time. But of course, there are lots of organisations, as we've learnt this morning, who are there to help you, to offer advice, to hold your hand, to actually just be there along the process for you and for your employees if you have to face the redundancy. Thank you so much to all those of you who are on the panel, to Joy, to Claire, Donna, Anne, Neil, Dawn, Kim and Josh for taking time out of your schedules to join us and to share your knowledge and advice. It's been so interesting and been great to hear what you have to say to people. I certainly have gained a sense of empowerment when I'm hearing about all of these organisations that work together to offer information that's easy for those of you who are going through these tricky times. So there is help out there. Please look out for it and know that there are people that have not only gone through the process but are before you, but that can offer you advice and knowledge, but also hopefully keep those and have that vision as well, that while some people might be losing jobs, others will be gaining them, and also giving people skills as well to apply for different jobs too, and to uphold that optimism that hopefully we feel for a Cornwall that doesn't look down on its heels, but is active and employables. So thank you all so much for being here, and thanks to you as well for posing those questions. Some useful websites for you: focus from the outset.co.uk, the Growth Hub as well, People Hub. There is going to be a new website, I think, Josh, in January as well for the People Hub, going live then, and the redundancy support information page. Do go to the Growth Hub to redundancy unemployment support. But thank you very much. That's our morning taken up, our hour taken up, and I hope that all of you have gained as much as we have as well, sitting here answering your questions and learning about what there is for you. And may I wish you all the best for not only the rest of the day, but also for the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody. Thanks, Daphne.
Bye.
Thanks.